Hi and welcome to the course on cloud computing. Today we are going to cover data storage in the cloud. Now these are the key concepts that we'll be covering in this chapter. We'll be talking about big data, cloud management interface, then cloud delivery network, cloud file system, cloud-based block storage, cloud storage, direct attached storage, file systems, host storage, and software-defined storage. Further, by the end of the chapter, we'll be looking at storage area network. So if we'll think of a cloud storage, the advantage of a cloud solution includes scalability, robustness, pay-for-use pricing models, and accessibility from any device at any time. Since our storage is in the cloud, we can access it from anywhere provided you have a solid internet connection. One of the early great successors of the cloud was the cloud-based storage, to which users posted photos, videos, from their phones, which they could later access from those phones as well as their personal computers. So as you know, you have seen lots of applications that we use on our mobile phone, especially if you have an Android phone and your Gmail account is configured with your mobile phone. You can access your Gmail and even Google Drive, where you're sharing your stuff. Even the backup of your mobile phone is maintained in the cloud. Now you can access all those things by either using a mobile application or from the computer. It's synchronized to a central location in the cloud, and we are all able to access that. Today, most users have gotten beyond the initial fears of putting the data in the cloud and use of cloud-based storage for the wide range of their files and documents. Initially, when it started, people were not very comfortable sharing their stuff in the cloud. Since they thought that maybe if the cloud service is compromised or if their username and password is compromised, their data could be at risk. But nowadays, with the encryption mechanisms and two-factor authentication, etc., it becomes a bit difficult that if a person who gained access to somehow your username and password, they'll not be able to log into your account in order to see the things or the stuff which is saved in your account. Now, accessing a cloud storage to the user, most cloud-based storage solutions appear as a standard disk drive on their system that they can use like any drive. So the cloud service providing companies are providing you the services through the website, like you can access it through the browser, or you can add them as an attached storage, just like you add a network drive to your computer. It would appear as a drive on your computer, which is very easy to use. You can drag and drop the files in that folder, in that drive, just like you do it on any other partition on your computer. In addition, most cloud storage providers furnish browser-based access that allows the users to access their files. Further, many cloud storage offers a mobile app that allows the users to access their files using their mobile phones. Just like if we want to access the Google Cloud or if we want to access OneDrive, we can either access it through the browser, or if we have their application installed on our mobile phones, we can access them using the application which is provided by the vendor. Now that's a shared storage which began with the file servers that we had long time ago. As you know, that all users, printers, and everything were connected to a server, file server, which had multiple hard drives, and we used to save stuff in that. Years ago, local area networks used special servers called file servers to support the file sharing, the replication, and storage of large files. The file server was a server on the network with large disk capacity where users could store and retrieve files. Over time, operating systems, specifically the file system within the operating system, evolved to allow the users and application to open the files directly on the server. Now, when it started, we used to have a number of hard drives on the computer and we were using it as the storage server. Now, initially, the problem was that every drive had a certain capacity, for example, 500 GB. So it couldn't expand more than that, and we cannot have it like a logical unit number that we have in most of these storage systems, that we can include more hard drives and we can expand the overall capacity of the storage. In this one, the storage was blocked to the size of the hard drive that we were using. If you are using 500 GB 3 hard drives, your data would be saved either in hard drive 1 or hard drive 2 or hard drive 3, and you will share the folders according to that on that file server. The other problem with these file servers was that there was only one network interface card, and all the users who were accessing the server were using that one network interface card. Now consider if lots of users would try to access the files through the same network interface port of this file server, sometimes it used to get really slow because other people were also copying the files from the same server. That was the initial solution when people had multimedia servers inside where they were saving the pictures and videos, etc. And then the things were cluttered so much that they looked for another solution, which we had a storage area network, which we call it as SAN. Now, a storage area network as a computer network evolved from the file server was extended through the use of the storage area network and could make use of more storage devices appear to be directly connected to the network. Behind the scene, the devices are actually connected to a SAN hardware through the use of a network cable. Software running within the SAN device made the devices appear directly accessible to the rest of the network. So, it was working as a central storage where it was connecting to the storage and the computers all together, where computers could see each other, they could access this stuff, and they can share the things using the storage area network. Now, that storage area network resolved lots of problems, like the issues that we have for the storage consolidation. As I told you, that if there were multiple hard drives, we were not able to consolidate it all together. Then concurrent access of multiple hosts were allowed. It was really good in the disaster recovery. It reduced the total cost of ownership. Further, it reduced the management cost and complexity in order to handle it. It improved the availability because it was managing all these storages and people were able to access it directly rather than going to the storage directly. We can expand the size of the storage by adding more hard drives. It improved the data protection and increased the capacity of the usage, etc., which wasn't possible in the typical file system. Now, another biggest benefit of the storage area network was that the speed of the storage and the data retrieval, etc., was dependent on the hardware which was used, on which we were saving the stuff. Now, since it was handling the storage itself, it has dedicated computational power and the mechanism in order to share the files all together on the network. Speed wasn't an issue, so you could transfer bigger files at a higher speed regardless of how many users are using it at the same time. Now then, the other storage that is still used and very famous these days is a network attached storage. As I have just added the network attached storage, two pictures that could be used, or they are used usually at home or in the office environment. Now, it's a device which is connected, or network attached storage, which has its own operating system with the help of which you can manage it through a graphical user interface, and you can define the storage and the RAID levels on it. Now, the one on the right hand side is a network attached storage which is used in the offices. And you can see these bays are indicating the hard drives which are connected to this one. So the maximum capacity of this one was up to the number of the hard drive spaces that it had. Same thing goes over here. That is a network attached storage of 1U that we can connect on the network. It would have a dedicated power supply and a network port. And then you can even access it through the browser-based interface to configure the RAID levels and rest of the things, and you can even map the drives on the computer so that you can access the data. Now, one hard drive could be of 1 terabyte. So in this one, if you have a capacity of 4 hard drives, you can have the 4 terabyte raw capacity, and the usable capacity would be different if you are configuring RAID on this one. Same thing is that if you'll change the hard drive to 2 terabyte each, you can utilize the same appliance for round about 8 terabyte, and then usable capacity would depend on the level of RAID that you have configured on this one. Then we have different advantages of NAS. When we talk about the advantages, it gives us reliability. NAS device typically provides the advanced data striping across multiple volumes within the device. Should one volume fail, the data striping would maintain the data and allow the reconstruction of the file contents. Now, the important thing in NAS and SAN storage is that it is striping the data at different levels, and you can better understand it if you have read about RAID levels. Now, it is keeping a parity of one hard drive in the other hard drive, just to make sure that if one hard drive fails, the other drives can combine together to reconstruct the data once you'll replace the faulty hard drive. Now that's the main function of it, that it is easily managing the data, and then we have less chances that our data would or our hard drive would fail. It would always be available whenever the users want to access it. So when you'll combine 4 hard drives together, it won't show you 1 terabyte, 1 terabyte, 1 terabyte, and 1 terabyte. It would combine it and make a complete pool of it, so that to you it would appear like a big storage of 4 terabyte. Now where it's saving which part of your data is none of your concern. That is its own mechanism, how it's handling the data. But to you it would appear like a big hard drive of 4 terabyte. Now performance, because of the NAS device does not run a complete operating system, the hardware has less system overhead, which allows it to outperform the file server. It is dedicated device which has its own CPU and a very light operating system which is managing the devices and everything. So the entire power goes to the data and the input and output of the data which is stored on the device. Now compatibility of the NAS device normally support common file system, which in turn makes them fully compatible with the file system like CIFS we have, or if you want to use NTFS on it, or any other file system which is recommended depending what kind of operating systems you are using on your computers, but it is fully compatible with that. Compatibility of NAS devices normally support common file systems, and then ease of performing backups. NAS devices are commonly used for backup devices within home, or example devices can be easily accessed and backup the files as a NAS device. So since it is connected on the network, and if you want to maintain backups of certain servers or some applications or your own computer and stuff like that, it can be easily accessed. But NAS on the same premises in the same building, keeping it for the backup purposes is never a good option, because we want to maintain the high-end backups at a remote location, because God forbid if anything happens, a natural disaster or anything, then the main infrastructure and the backup both will be destroyed. So that's why it's recommended to maintain it at a different place. Now we know iCloud, we have seen it. Most of the Apple products are using iCloud in order to back up their devices, whether it's a phone, tablet, or their on computers and iMacs, etc. How to access a cloud-based storage? Through a web-based interface through which we move the files to the storage and a variety of devices. Now through a mounted disk, as I told you, you can add it or mount it to a computer. It would appear just like an additional drive. For application developers, the storage area may represent itself through a set of application programming interface calls. The advantages of a cloud-based storage is unlimited, but they are just talking about some of the very important features which are considered as the advantage of a cloud-based solution. बहन का भाई Reliability is most cloud-based data storage provide the facility of transparent data replication. It means that they show you that what kind of encryption mechanisms they are using in order to maintain the transparency that your data is 100% safe and no one will have access to that. Ease of access, as we covered earlier, that most data or cloud data storage provider facilities support web-based interface, and it can be accessed through different devices. Ease of use is, again, you can use it as the attached device on your computer, through which you can easily drag and drop files, delete the data from the drive itself without any hassle. And automatic data synchronization. Most cloud-based storage solutions can automatically sync files between the cloud and the user computer. If a user creates an update for the file, it would be updated. Now, if you are having a cloud-based solution, not necessarily that they will have a synchronization, because there are two things in it. One is a cloud-based storage, and the other thing is that if you are syncing a specific drive or a desktop or your documents to the cloud service provider, just like Dropbox. So only those things will be automatically backed up. So you'll have to define that which things actually you want to back up in the cloud. Now, some of the advantages are there also for cloud-based storage. Required internet connection. So if you need to access files and they are bigger in size, you need a very powerful connection in order to access those files. The performance really depends on the internet connection and the bandwidth that you have. Maybe if you're traveling and you are having a very limited bandwidth or a metered connection, sometimes it becomes difficult to download everything unless and until if you'll have to upgrade your package. Security, some users are still uncomfortable having their data in the cloud. And data orphans, users may abandon data in the cloud storage facility, leaving private or company confidential data at risk. Now that happens that if sometimes a mobile phone is lost, or if a storage was in use by an organization, they went bankrupt, or they are not using it, or they are not practicing the same kind of business, maybe their files would remain in the cloud. We call them as data orphans. Same thing happens that if a mobile phone is lost and the username and password and recovery accounts, all those things are gone, there is no way that you can recover the data from those cloud solutions. Now that's a Microsoft OneDrive. As you can see that you can attach it as a OneDrive, a device on the computer that would appear on the computer as one of the drives. They have also added Dropbox over there. You can access it directly through the web-based interface, and you can access it from the mobile phone as well. Now, cloud-based backups are really important if you have a subscription of any of the computer imaging devices or the backup solutions. They are mostly providing a storage in the cloud, just like we have Acronis, which is providing you a software for backup or maintaining the backup of your computer or imaging the computer in the cloud. Both solutions are there where you can maintain a complete backup in the cloud. Now again, the same problem in that is that if you are in an organization which has an unlimited bandwidth and unlimited uploads, you can easily maintain the backup in the cloud. It's the safest option, but you'll have to consider that in case of a disaster, you have a recovery time on which you'll have to recover the things on a very short notice. So if your internet connection is reliable enough to download the image file which is in the cloud, or the backup which is in the cloud, to be downloaded and to be installed on the computer which is affected due to any kind of problems. Now, cloud-based backup files are backed up in an encrypted format. Users can schedule when the backup operations occur, so they will automatically maintain the backups in the cloud. You don't have to intervene. You'll define it, for example, late hours. After the duty hours, the system would be up and it would automatically maintain the backup in the cloud. Users can schedule, then users can easily retrieve the backup from the cloud. Most of the supported systems are, for example, Windows, Linux, and Mac operating systems. Now we are talking about big data, and in big data they are talking about how we store the big data files or database. We must distribute smaller pieces of the file across multiple computers in the cloud. So that's how it's maintaining it. Now Hadoop is one of the biggest examples that we have out there. It's an open source project, the goal of which is to support reliable, scalable, distributed computing. Part of the project includes the Hadoop distribution file system, a Java based system which is well suited for cloud based storage, and we call it as HDFS. Is designed to be highly fault tolerant and robust to maintain the operations in an event of a failure. So that's the interface of it, and most of the companies are rapidly shifting toward the Hadoop, and I think SAP is also using it. Now we have the industry-based specific solutions, or a cloud-based solution storage. Now across different industries, groups have different data storage across and access requirements. The healthcare industry, for example, is working to standardize secure electronic records, and which can be accessible from the cloud to a variety of medical facilities. It has its own mechanisms and compliance and regulatory requirements just to make sure that the data related to the patients remain 100% confidential in the cloud, so that no one else has access to the information which is there in the cloud. Now, cloud-based database provided with a PaaS solution, maybe you'll have an application and a database both hosted in the cloud, and you'll be accessing it through the browser. As you can see that maybe their application, they are hosting an application in the cloud. The database is also in the cloud, so you don't have to worry about the management of the database. Both are hosted in the same cloud, and you will be accessing it through the browser. There are different advantages of a cloud database. For example, cost-effective database scalability. It's in the cloud. You don't have to worry about paying the licensing fee and other things. You can pay for more if you want to scale up the database. Cloud-based databases can scale dynamically to meet the customer needs, and you will pay as you go basis. High availability cloud-based database systems normally reside on redundant hardware, which results in a high system uptime. You don't have to worry about it. That's the headache of the cloud service provider, to make sure that their services are up and available. High data redundancies in a cloud-based database are normally replicated behind the scenes to increase the data availability. Now, they are maintaining the backup of the database itself. Now, certain applications require that if the data is written simultaneously to two locations, it is not considered committed unless the data is written on both locations. So it's making sure that the same data goes to the both databases, so that you have high availability. In case if one database fails, you know that for sure you have a copy of that data available in the second, which is a replicated database. Reduce administration. The cloud-based database provider maintains the database and data compression behind the scenes. The cloud data storage may compress the content to reduce the amount of space. Thus, the cost of the cloud-based solution would be reduced as well. Now, there is certain data that you are not using it, or maybe you'll be using it later sometime for data analytics, etc. So, in that kind of scenario, data compression plays an important role. Now, next we have some disadvantages of a cloud-based storage. Data security concerns are still there. Some users still not feel comfortable having their data in the cloud. And then sometimes the disadvantage is that certain countries don't want their data related to certain companies to be available in the cloud. They want to have it within the geographical region so that they have complete control on the data. Now, performance is because data requires data queries may travel to the internet. The cloud-based database access will not be as fast as a local database solution. That's always the case, because when you are running different queries, you don't know if your internet is slow, or the service problem is there from the service provider, or your PC is performing slow. Especially if you are running lots of queries and trying to get lots of data from the database and your internet connection is not reliable, you might face some problems in accessing the data from the cloud. Now, Microsoft Azure and SQL, that's another example of having a cloud-based solution where we can have Microsoft Azure server in the cloud and a Microsoft database, which is an SQL Azure. As we expect, SQL Azure provides scalability, database replication, load balancing, and automatic failover. Thus, it makes a very good match if we have a database and Microsoft Azure server in the cloud, where we can easily communicate with them, and they are replicating the database which we have on premises and the accounts that we are maintaining on the Active Directory on premises. Next, we have block storage. It's the simplest sense. A block of data storage is a fixed size sequence of bits. The size of the block normally corresponds to the underlying unit of the storage on the block device. Some applications work with very large blocks of data, the format of which has means only to the application itself, means that the data may not map well to the storage within the file system of the database. Now, it really depends what kind of storage you are using and what's the main purpose of the database and what kind of data you are actually saving in the database. So you'll define or you'll adopt the database and the kind of systems that you have according to your own infrastructure. In medical terms, for example, in hospitals, they are maintaining x-rays mostly stored in the databases. Now, whether it would be in the cloud or on premises, that again depends on the country where they are practicing. And the other thing is that how much data will be saved on daily basis in the cloud if the local storage can handle that, or they'll have to move to the cloud-based storage. The support to support the applications with large data block needs, Amazon Web Services, for example, provide the Amazon Simple Storage, which we call S3, a highly reliable, scalable, and available block storage, which is available with their services. Now, if you are setting up a virtual machine in the cloud, which is an E instance or E3, you can select the storage as S3 to be there available, which the kind of storage you want to use with your server in the cloud. Amazon OS 3 describes the block of the storage as buckets because the applications may manage the data in its organization. Developers often refer to the block storage as the software defined storage as well. Now there is information about hot and cold storage. When you store the data in the cloud, the data is normally immediately available to the users. Administrators refer to such storage as hot storage. So whatever you are doing in the cloud, making the changes directly in the data which is available online, will be immediately available to the users. There may be times, however, when you need to store the data possibly as a backup or for compliance purposes, for which the data does not need to be immediately available, but it would be available after some time. It depends the kind of an environment you are in. For example, if they are consolidating or collecting the data from different branches, they'll compile it together and only then they'll be able to make reports on it after they have analyzed the data from the different branches in the city. Administrators refer to such storage as the cold storage. Should a user need data in a cloud storage, it may need to be spun up or loaded into a hot storage solution to be accessible all the time whenever they need to access it. Cold storage is normally less expensive than hot storage, is well suited for the data for which a slight delay in access is acceptable. So the kind of businesses that you are doing, for example, if you have an online shop or if you are buying and selling anything online and maintaining the data, of course that data is really important to maintain the inventory levels and stuff. So you'll have to have the hot storage over there. Whereas if I'm saying if you are backing up the things in the cloud and you are consolidating all the sales from different branches and then you'll run the queries on it to come up with the reports, in those kind of things you can go for the cold storage. Next, we have utilizing content delivery networks. Many cloud-based solutions leverage content such as videos, photos, and audios that the solution deploys to the users. To improve the performance of such solutions, developers will often leverage optimized servers called the content delivery network to house and deploy the content. Such CDN solutions are optimized to often located in geographical user locations to reduce the amount of the time and solution needs to transfer the files. To reduce the transmission time, for example, solution might leverage the CDN on the coast and from the east and west coast. So the data that we are saving, for example, videos, photos, audios, etc., depends what kind of business you are in, and you need to store the data. For that, the solution provider or the content delivery networks, if they are nearby, it would become a little bit easier for you to upload the data and download it from there, which are nearby at a high speed. Now, Cloud Data Management Interface, the Storage Network Industry Association, is not for a profit non-profit association consisting of the members from the hundreds of companies that share the goal and standardizing the data storage solution. We call it SNIA, is a working on the cloud management interface, which we call CDMI, which defines the behind the scenes functionality interface that applications will use to create and retrieve and update the data cloud from the cloud and its data items. The goal of CDMI is that the cloud-based storage facility to be discovered by applications. This means that the application can query the facility to the data services it's provided, and then in addition to CDMI is setting the stage for the metadata assigned to the data itself and a key implementation of a Web3 semantic capability. So they are just talking about some of the future things which are happening and how they want to shape this cloud storage kind of thing. So that's it for today. I hope things are clear. That's it for today for data storage in the cloud. Thank you very much.